Hey guys, hi. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our panel. The first panel for today is Who Said Crypto Has to Be Complicated? My name is Jacky. I'm from Debrief, and I will be moderating our panel today. Joining us today, we have Sumit, Kabir, as well as Marcus. To kickstart the panel, right, let's get warm up a little bit with some introduction for all panelists. Can we get a round of introduction? Maybe we can start with Sumit first.
Yes, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Glad to be here. A quick introduction about myself. I'm Sumit, co-founder and CEO of CoinDCX, which is the India's largest crypto exchange. A quick about my background. I've done my graduation from IIT Bombay, and then I realized I got exposed to the world of crypto in year 2014 when I was in Japan. I moved back to India and I felt that, okay, the world economies are going to be increasingly digital and decentralized, and wanted to jump into that, and that's how I got into crypto. Been almost 4 years since we started CoinDCX, and looking forward to learning and discussing more about the world of cryptos in this event today. Thank you, Jacky.
Got it. Thank you, Sumit. Marcus, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Really excited to be here. I'm Marcus Lim. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Zipmex. I'm originally from Singapore, but I spent 20 years in Australia. And prior to starting Zipmex, I started a tech company called OneFlare, which is a marketplace for local services. I first discovered crypto back in 2014 when one of my engineers was mining Bitcoin. And I started to be really curious and decided to start Zipmex back in 2018 when Thailand became the first country in Southeast Asia to regulate digital asset exchanges. Together with my co-founder, Dr. Akalapi Mwalai, we founded the business back in 2019 and launched it in 2020. We cover 4 markets. So we're headquartered here in Singapore. Our biggest market is in Thailand. And then we're in Indonesia and also in Australia. We are primarily a crypto exchange, but we also offer other products and services such as an end product where users can earn interest. We also are moving into the NFT and metaverse space. And we're looking to kind of launch payments in Southeast Asia as well. So really, really exciting. Our vision really is to empower everyone to experience the world of digital assets. And so it's not just about educating our customers in investing, but also how they can actually interact with the new world, which is the metaverse world. Thank you.
Got it. That is a lot of stuff that you're working on. Kabir, you want to do a quick introduction of yourself?
I am Kabir, one of the co-founders at B Capital. Big passion is investing in the future. It's around entrepreneurship and investing. Spend time as an entrepreneur. I realized how tough it is to operate a business. So I now partner with incredible entrepreneurs. We have 2 of our amazing founders on the panel today. So Marcus at Zipmex, had the privilege of partnering with them, and Sumit at CoinDCX. We've now got 100 companies in the portfolio. Big focus is kind of US and Asia. And we'll talk about it more in the panel, but we've been looking at the Web3 space, the crypto space quite actively. 4 of our portfolio companies are in the space, and we're looking to make a lot more investments. Big believers in how this is going to evolve the next few years and decades.
Got it. Okay. Thank you all. The panel today is really on accessibility, right? And is it complicated to really invest and start trading crypto? How would you? This is open to the 3 of you. How would you describe cryptocurrency investment today? What I caught earlier from Sumit and Marcus was that both of you started in 2014, right? How is it compared today versus last time? Is it really that simple right now? Sumit, you want to share your thoughts?
Sure, Jacky. I think back then, buying and even simple buying and selling of crypto was quite complex. I still remember my early days when there were few exchanges in the country, in India today, where the spreads were as high as 5%. And when you wanted to buy any crypto, the process used to take like days. But now I would say it's like table stakes. Like investing into crypto is pretty much solved. Anyone in India can buy any crypto in a matter of few seconds. So that's something that we have been able to solve. But what's important to also discuss here is while the investing problem is solved, how are investors educated about the space? Like how do people decide that, okay, which crypto to invest in, right? What percentage of their portfolio should go into crypto? How do they protect themselves from the volatility in the space? Because the market can go up 5-10% every single day. How do you make sure that once you've got crypto, how are you keeping it secure? And all of those things I think we have to work on. I fundamentally believe that when we talk about taking crypto to the masses, right, education continues to play a key role, and not educating the customers, but also educating the regulators and policymakers, because they are the one who's deciding, the regulatory framework around it. And the real adoption can happen when we see regulations coming into these countries, and that's where the masses will get into crypto, and then you'll start seeing a lot of new entrepreneurs jumping into the space and creating a lot of use cases. I think right now we have maybe 10,000 plus tokens, but what's important to solve here is the fundamental utility and the use cases of that, and that's where you'll see a lot of mass adoption and the mainstream world also getting into crypto.
Got it. Marcus, Kabir, you got any inputs?
Sure. Yeah. So for Zipmex, I mean, it's actually the first thing we try to solve is trust issue in Southeast Asia. As you guys are aware, like in Southeast Asia, there are a lot of bad actors in this space. And if you kind of look at 4 years ago, kind of getting into the whole crypto space, like what Sumit has mentioned, is extremely difficult. And, kind of who to trust is of kind of paramount concern because you don't know whether an exchange would, suddenly fold or, leave the next day and all your digital assets have gone with them. So for Zipmex, what we tried to do to establish that trust is to be regulated first and foremost. So, back in 2019, we started applying for licenses in all 4 countries. And then as of 2020, we got 2 licenses in Thailand and to be getting our licenses in Indonesia and Singapore. So kind of establishing that trust factor, I think that's the most important part. The second part is that user experience and the whole kind of what we call the fiat on and off ramp. And so back in 2016, 2017, it was still very cumbersome, people having to transfer money through, a kind of a bogus bank account, which you're not sure whether the money will be, missing the next day. So, building those payment rails in Thailand using PromptPay, for example, whereas in Indonesia with payment gateways through Sendit, or here in Singapore, right, through Expert. I think it's like building the payment rails where people can transfer money in very quickly. And then, providing that liquidity as well, which is one of the primary concerns as well when people wanted to buy, is could they actually buy, enough of what they wanted to invest in. And then from there, the extension is, allowing them to invest in a different array of digital assets. Like what Sumit has also mentioned is, in the very early years, it's, kind of looking at investing in the top 5 and top 10. Obviously, that kind of ranking profile has completely changed, and the kind of the breadth of digital assets it's completely exploded over the last 12, 18 months. So it's now an education process of how do we, educate our users, how they should be looking at certain protocols, how they should be investing. And what we've seen in terms of the evolution, as we've seen with DeFi and CeFi, is it's no longer just about investing into the digital asset itself. It's how do you farm for yield? How do you, continue to compound your wealth? And I think this is like super exciting because now it kind of moves into the whole space of, not just financial access, but also wealth generation for the many years to come. And then the third kind of evolution is around how do you interact in the whole crypto space, right? With NFT and metaverse that is coming up, that is super, super exciting. So our goal is really to make things super simple for our users so they can experience the world of digital assets.
Yeah, and Jacky, I think Marcus Sumit captured really well. It's not surprising when you see the number of crypto users. It's gone from about 100 million to 300 million. And I think for a lot of that, and this is globally, for that to happen, you've had like some incredible platforms, entrepreneurs, developers that have kind of made that happen, right? So you've got 2 incredible founders and teams here with kind of Marcus speaking about what Zipmex has done in places like Indonesia, Thailand, Southeast Asia. Sumit's been a pioneer in that India, right? And I think there's a bit of resilience because this has been a volatile space. So I think how you navigate through that and still persevere, I think that's been incredible. And so by doing that, they've made the I guess it's much more seamless for users. But as Sumit spoke about, it's been a whole set of things. It's been about education. How do you kind of educate the users? It's about comfort, safety, the right kind of infrastructure backbone, but then also working with regulators. So you kind of helping build the ecosystem in a very collaborative way. I think there's, of course, the journey is still, it's a journey of 1,000 steps and 1,000 miles, and so it's begun. But there's a lot more that needs to be done, and things like how do you build more seamless on the on ramp and off ramp that Marcus spoke about. How do you kind of make sure this is going beyond? So I think the whole point of staking, wealth creation, I think that's going to attract more users and just at some level benefits existing users. So I think it's really strong progress. The journey from 100 million to 300 million, a lot of it has been done by platforms like Zipmex and CoinDCX, just as they made it simpler, more secure, working with regulators to kind of make that happen.
Got it. So I hear a lot about regulatory, having a strong framework as well. In your view, what do you think is the biggest challenge right now? To make it make retail investment on crypto or even institutional investment in crypto much more accessible right now. Sumit, you want to address this?
Sure, Jacky. I think there are a few challenges, right? When we look into the world of crypto, right? I mean, there is one, the fiat economy, the fiat ecosystem. That's where INR, Indian rupee, or US dollar operates. And then the other world is the crypto world, right? I think the transition from fiat economy to crypto economy has to be super streamlined, right? When we talk about getting more and more people or getting crypto accessible to masses, and that can be done when you have, full support of banks. For example, when Marcus talked about license, I think that is a very good way for you to achieve that. Work very closely with the banking, bank, so that you can have a very streamlined payment rails. For people to get into crypto. I think that's a very fundamental part once someone has decided that, okay, they want to get into crypto. I think, that essentially, you need to make banks comfortable, regulators comfortable, and your life gets much easier when there are regulations. You have a set of guidelines that you want to, that you have to follow. And the whole ecosystem grows orderly in an organic fashion, right? Keeping sure that the investors are protected, because that's the first thing that the regulators and policymakers want to ensure. That how are you ensuring that the investors are protected? And I think there are a few challenges, right? I'll be very vocal about it. For example, let's say, so many tokens out there, and then we have seen a lot of these retail investors investing into some of these tokens so that they can multiply their wealth in a very quick span of time. Maybe, investing in some of these meme coins, or investing, $100, want to make it like $5,000, $10,000 in a matter of few years. I think if you look at it practically, right, it cannot sustainably grow at the same rate, right? So it has to somehow stabilize. And we also know, like during the .com era, not every company or website that came up is successful today. I still remember there was a website called 1 Million Pixels, where people were selling like a pixel on internet for $1. Now it's not existing anymore. But there are some very fundamental projects which are like, we have seen companies like Google and Amazon coming out of it, right? Similarly, here right now we are in a phase where there's still a lot of noise. There are a lot of tokens projects, which are trying to build, develop. And then not everything is going to be successful. Maybe more than half or more than 80% of them might not even survive in the next 5-10 years. So how do you make sure that you build a robust environment, make sure that there are no bad actors in the system is something that's very important for the ecosystem to grow. And I think a properly laid out, guidelines, regulations, which works in the interest of the end consumer is actually very important. More than the consumer, as I mentioned some time back, I think it's also important that the space is evolving very, very fast. I mean, 3 years back, nobody knew that NFT could be as big, right? DeFi got picked up. The TVL has increased substantially, like more than 100x in the last 2-3 years. Maybe 3 years back, nobody knew like it's going to be that successful, right? And we don't know what might come up in the next 3 years, right? So the space is evolving so fast that's difficult to catch up with it, right? And generally, what we have seen is that technology always moves faster than the law. So how do you build an environment where, the technology is, technology is growing, evolving, and the law is also catching up to it at the right pace? So I think what we really need in this rapidly evolving ecosystem is fluid regulations or fluid sort of environment, which is evolving in itself, over time so that we are not hindering the innovation. Everyone understands, I think in India also, when we speak to some of the regulators, first of all, what we realize is that they're coming from a different background. Like example, we understand this technology because this is our bread and butter. We spend hours and hours on it every day, but you can't expect the same from someone who is running the country, right? So you have to also educate them. You also have to understand. It's a very overwhelming subject, right? It's not easy for someone to, understand, who is coming from a different background, that, okay, how do NFTs operate and what is the real use case of NFTs, until we have seen adoption of it at scale, like 100 million people in India are using, and there are real world use cases which are operating at scale. I think those are some of the challenges that the industry need to overcome. And it's organic. I mean, we can't expect that to happen in a matter of few months or quarters, right? It will happen organically. And I think one of the ways to solve that is to do the right things which helps the customer, right? If the customers are not protected, then essentially, that will not serve the purpose. How do you, give the right value to the end users, right? How do you make sure that, people are working on the right use cases, which will ultimately drive adoption? I think those become increasingly more important for this space to grow in the years to come.
Got it. So education seems to be the key right now. It has to happen organically, and we cannot really push it, right? So Marcus, Kabir, you have any thoughts on how can we, what the biggest challenge right now in terms of how can we make crypto investing, or make it easier for everyone to jump onto the Web3 world?
Yeah. So, sorry, Kabir, please go ahead.
I was just one thing to add to what Sumit said, and then Marcus, I'll lob it to get your thoughts, is just the regulatory framework. We find that to be obviously very different in different markets. Each obviously central bank has different lens on it. Governments have different lens on it. And so I think you almost see a whole spectrum of that across the world. So one is, of course, picking which areas which are slightly more forward thinking. I think Sumit spoke about that, which is some of it is, it's always happened, right? Whenever there's a new asset, there's a kind of a new breakthrough coming in technology. Technology does kind of move faster in that sense, but how do you kind of work alongside the regulator to kind of make it work, right? And so we actually, some level, think in emerging markets, while you'd expect how emerging markets kind of react. In reality, is for a lot of the users, something like crypto or decentralized platform, etc., become even more attractive, which is why it's not surprising when you see even just the number of users or the excitement, you're actually seeing even more so in emerging markets, right? So I think it's at least a good news that it's been taken note of. It's more about how do leaders, like Zipmex and CoinDCX, work with the ecosystem as they kind of build it out. Marcus, I'll hand it back to you to kind of get your thoughts.
Sure, thanks, Kabir. So I think the discussion on kind of the regulatory framework for crypto globally is a big topic. So I think what I can comment on is in Southeast Asia, and I'll try to condense it as much as possible. So in terms of the top three kind of concerns for regulators in this part of the world, as the following. The first one is the ability to control monetary policy, and also kind of making sure that there's no huge capital flight in Southeast Asia, where most of the currencies are controlled currencies except for Singapore. And so, for example, in Thailand, the central bank or the Bank of Thailand is most concerned about the capital flight of Thai baht into crypto, and obviously that kind of devalues the Thai baht. So that's kind of the first main concern. The second one is around anti-money laundering. Money laundering is obviously huge in Southeast Asia, and being able to kind of control that through proper KYC processes, proper checks, with world checks to make sure that people that are coming into the investing into the space are not using it as a means to kind of laundering money. And then the third one is investor protection. And this one is also very key because there are a lot of projects, that can be listed on exchanges. And as we all know, a lot of these projects, some of them are quite dubious. And obviously we've heard of terms like rug pulls before. So, in that instance, obviously investors lose the entire sum of money. So I think these are kind of the three key concerns that regulators are trying to solve for. And so, while they're trying to grapple with these concerns, I think from our perspective, in order to kind of really pave the way for crypto adoption in Southeast Asia, I think the first one, what we kind of request from regulators is consistency in terms of regulation. We oftentimes see, there's a lot of kind of ad hoc, adjustments in the policies, which can be quite detrimental in terms of, how we can be operating. So, for example, let's say in Thailand, because it's the most regulated at the moment, regulators will come out and say, fan tokens or kind of meme tokens cannot be listed. And they kind of do that in a very short period of time, almost like an emergency decree. And in exchanges like us have to kind of react very quickly, to ensure that we keep up with the regulation. So I feel like, it's sometimes quite challenging for us to kind of, adopt certain policies or regulations very quickly at a very last minute. And so I think making sure there's like proper consistency, making sure there's proper understanding across the board in terms of how they're thinking about regulation will help us to shape the way we operate our business on an ongoing basis. So consistency is one. The second one is adaptation of regulation. So what I mean by that is, a lot of the regulators in Southeast Asia, the kind of the benchmark that they use is how they regulate the stock exchange. And I think in the securities world, which has been around for decades, so very well established, obviously does not make sense in the crypto space. I mean, if you look at, crypto exchanges, for example, a lot of our customers come directly to our platform to invest, whereas if you look at the stock exchange world, you have the stock exchange and then you have hundreds of brokers that interact with the stock exchange, and these brokers will interact with, the customers or even with remisers in Indonesia, for example. So that whole model and the way it's being regulated, I think a lot of regulators are trying to use that benchmark to move it across the crypto, which just does not work. So adaptation, I think, is the key part here. Is what can they learn or what can they use from what has already been done in securities world and apply it here, but then understand what the delta is, and then try to solve for that delta. Now, to solve for that delta, I think you really need, us as, the kind of the operators in the ecosystem, to provide kind of valuable input in terms of how we can kind of transition the right way from a regulatory perspective. So I think this is an ongoing kind of discussion with the regulators as they need to be educated and kept up to speed on all the new developments. And even for us as operators, like there's so much new development that we need to keep up to speed, and let alone the regulators having to keep up to speed. So it's an ongoing kind of like a fast learning education process. And I'd say the third one really is kind of, the ability to kind of allow us as operators to test or sandbox certain kind of new products and innovation. I think this part is really key because, even if there's no kind of regulation currently for DeFi, right? I think the regulators is in their best interest to kind of understand how this will play out. And I think the sandbox environment is a really interesting, concept that they can then implement in all jurisdictions, right, in a controlled environment. And so at least from there, they are able to see, what are kind of the pros and cons of certain product innovations that are coming out, which may or may not be good for the economy, or maybe may or may not be good for those three concerns that I mentioned already. And having that sandbox environment also helps us as, the operators of the ecosystem, right, to test, certain innovations and whether that would have product market fit as well for our consumers. And so, a well kind of thought out, sandbox environment would be really good. And so then we can kind of work towards, I guess, a more progressed and more highly adopted, crypto ecosystem. Thank you.
Okay, we spent a fair bit of time talking about regulatory stuff, and it seems like we were focusing a little bit too much on that. But I just wanted to zoom out a little bit. A lot of innovations happening in the crypto world today, right? And as centralized platforms like both of you guys are innovating and gaining users as well, right? Decentralized finance, which are a little bit more complicated to use, is also growing, right? I just want to get the panel's thought on where do you see the future of CeFi and DeFi? Do we coexist? Does DeFi make crypto investing easier? Sumit, you want to love to hear your thoughts?
Yep, sure. Jacky, very quickly, I think as I mentioned, right, CeFi is basically helps us connect the centralized world, basically the fiat world, to the crypto economy. So the way I see it is like, people will enter into the crypto economy using centralized platforms, like for example, spot exchanges where people will have fiat ramps and then. But once they get into the crypto, I think DeFi just makes it a lot more efficient. For example, what do you do within the crypto economy? Let's say once you have a stable coin or a Bitcoin or Ethereum, right? What do you do inside that? I think DeFi is going to play a very critical role in terms of making the financial world a lot more efficient, right? I think as the economies are going to be digital and decentralized, I think crypto is going to play a very critical role in it, right? And how do you, and of course, I mean, DeFi is still, growing really fast, but I think there's a lot more potential it can do in terms of value movement, just like how Web3 has solved the information flow in the world. I think the value flow is something that the DeFi will solve, because now you're already in the world of crypto, right? And there is no geographical boundary that you have to bound to. For example, I'm not restricted to just India as a nation if I want to do anything. It just connects the entire world. And just imagine the value transfer, so seamless within this economy. I think that's going to open up a lot of possibilities, and you will see the current financial world, which is restricted by nations and geographies, will now open up, and you'll see a lot more use cases. I think I see a very solid use case, especially in a country like India, the use of crypto and remittance. Now, how do you solve, how do you take crypto as an infrastructure and solve for the remittance? That's essentially, that particular problem solving is essentially going to save billions of dollars for the country as well as for the user. So it's all about how do you develop more and more use cases in the DeFi world, to make the value flow efficient, and how do you use this centralized bridge to bring more people into the crypto economy. And some people call it Web 2.5, that basically right now we're in Web 2, and then you will basically get more and more people into this world, and then that's where the real the hockey curve growth starts, when most people, when you cross a critical mass into this world, and the value transfer will be far more efficient in that case. Yeah.
Got it. I love it. Marcus, Kabir, you all have any thoughts on the future of CeFi and DeFi? Do we coexist on that front?
Sure, I can jump in. Yeah, so definitely, I mean, what Sumit has mentioned, I'd like to echo that as well. I mean, we definitely will coexist, CeFi and DeFi, because we are kind of the on-ramp, into kind of into the crypto world, into the DeFi world. So we will always be there as an ecosystem operator and player to assist people kind of, on-ramping, fiat money into the entire space. I think DeFi is programmable banking actually, and I think that the really interesting thing is, with traditional banking or TradeFi, there are a lot of inefficiencies, and these inefficiencies can be solved eventually in a DeFi world. I think the DeFi world is still fairly nascent. There's still a lot of inefficiencies in terms of transaction fees, for example, which is extremely high when each cost is all-time high. So I think these are, some of the things that are being worked through at the moment, and will take, more than a couple of years, to be able to get there. But I think the ultimate vision here is how do we kind of make programmable banking for everyone? So that's super exciting, where you don't really have, and I think it's, to be seen whether we have a world where there's no centralized platform that controls banking. That's a scary thought in itself, because we're so used to central organizations controlling banking, and obviously kind of the central bank controlling the bank itself. But I think, for the libertarians of crypto, I think we want everything kind of decentralized. So I think that the world is still not shaped yet. I think there's going to be a confluence of different things that are happening over there. But, I think what we also see is, with the pandemic that has happened in 2020, central banks have reduced the interest rates significantly. And then we see the advent of DeFi taking off, back in 2020 and 2021, is, kind of the arbitrage, or I guess the differentials in interest that you seem to be getting, even for things like on a stable coin, right? So, central banks are giving you 1% or less than 1%. And then versus your DeFi, you're getting, north of 10% at some point. So, a lot of people are kind of looking at the yield where, the traditional world, they're not getting any, whereas in a DeFi world, you're getting so much of it. And so that actually has caused a lot of, flows of money from, from cash essentially into stable coins that we saw in 2021. So I think definitely there's, we will continue to coexist, but super excited about, how the world's going to shape up.
Yeah, and I would just echo what I think that Marcus Sumit said. I think you will see CeFi and DeFi kind of coexist. Also, it's very hard to kind of go after Sumit and Marcus to talk anything about the future. So let me just talk more about the history, right? If you step back and think about things, it's both humbling and inspiring. Even the term DeFi, we talk about it now, but if you look back, it got coined in August 2018, right? So it's only been a few years where this movement started, but just think about the impact it's kind of already had. Of course, you're going to need the kind of CeFi for things like regulatory checks, and some of those are KYC checks that we spoke about. But I think just the progress that's been made with several DeFi protocols, the value is $200 billion of total value that's been locked in DeFi and different kind of protocols out there. You start to see wider adoption. We spoke about earlier, by NFTs. So I think a lot of kind of progress. But I think sometimes it's useful to just step back and think about history, right? So if you think about finance, I'm a math student, but I also love history, right? If you think about the last 500 years of history, you've had 5 major currencies that were dominant for either 95 to 100 years, right? So you had whether it was the British pound, currency from kind of Portugal, Netherlands, and now it's been the US dollar for about 95 years. I think some of these things, you need to kind of think about them in longer periods of time. And so I think in that context, I think the progress being already made, with things like, in DeFi is incredible. I think, it's humbling, inspiring on the progress made in the last 4 years. And I think if you just think about the momentum that kind of takes us through the next few years, you think about, we spoke about users, 300 million users, already talks about how quickly will that become 1 billion users. You think about developers that are now, focused on developing for Web3, it's about 19,000. That's been a huge jump compared to a few years back. You're seeing some really strong companies, entrepreneurs that are, kind of helping scale that up, right? So I think it's been incredible progress over the last few years. And I think you'll just see a lot more. DeFi just continues to become bigger. And so I think it's very exciting for what the future holds.
Got it. Thank you all. I think to conclude the panel, the panel discussion basically on, who said crypto has to be complicated, right? And we spoke a little bit about education, about regulation. I think one last question for the panelists, what do you think is needed for us to see the next 1 billion retail investors to come on board the world crypto? Is it a matter of new use cases, or is it really just education and regulatory push? What are your last thoughts?
Sure, I'll go first, Jacky. Very quickly, I think it will come organically eventually as more and more use cases comes. But fundamentally, what I feel is also, the first early adopters are there for something, right? For example, right now we have seen a lot of people investing into these crypto assets, right? Or trying to get passive yields by different projects out there. I think initial adopters are always there for financial gains. I think that's what I believe, right? Whenever you see a new industry, I mean, you'll always see people who are there for some rewards, right? In the short term, they just flock onto it initially. So I feel that, we have seen a lot of that happening. A lot of people are there for financial gain. So that's basically bring another 100, 200 couple of, $200 million people into this world. We have seen Coinbase having 90 million people. We have more than 12 million verified users already from India, and Indian market has roughly 20-25 million people, which can easily expand or eat the pie of people who invest in equity market, right? So that's another 100 million bucket. But I think when we talk about gaming now, this is where things get exciting, right? If you look at the people who are into gaming, and if you combine the world of gaming and crypto, you will see another 200, 300 million people getting into crypto, with art, NFT. I think that's going to bring another bucket of people into crypto. And with these more and more use cases, you're going to see more people getting into this world of crypto and then understanding, okay, this has a use case in our domain as well. Like a lot of content creators, there's something like social token. Like a lot of these people are content creators in the world of Instagrams and Facebook and YouTube. They will also start adopting it because it's now affecting their lives, right? They also see that, okay, this is the value to me. And you will see these chunks or buckets of people or communities getting into crypto, realizing, okay, this has a use case for me. I think that's how the transition is going to happen. And of course, I mean, when more and more dApps will come, they will also start penetrating deeper, you'll see more adoption, the networks becoming stronger, and of course, as the network effects start kick in, you will see more and more people getting into that. I think so. It's going to happen in parts where a one use case which can be adopted by masses is going to bring maybe few 100 million people into the world of crypto, and that's how I believe that we can possibly have 1 billion people in crypto. And then of course, I mean, that's not where the thing stops. I mean, it has to go and touch, just like how internet has touched like almost everyone, right? I think we want to see Web3 and crypto. And it's not like people are interacting with directly, even if like directly as well as indirectly. I think it's gonna impact billions of people across the world.
Okay, new use cases. Marcus, Kabir, we ran on time already, but quick thoughts on what do you think is needed for the next 1 billion people to come on board?
Yeah, look, I think just very quickly, I think regulatory progression is definitely key. We need to continue to work with the regulators to kind of provide the right kind of playbook for people to come into the space. So that's the first one. I think second one is use cases, and I think to Sumit's point, if we can see the NFT space also and also the metaverse space. I mean, if you look at 2017, 2018, people came into the crypto space because they're looking for financial rewards, as Sumit has mentioned, right? And what we see now with the NFT and metaverse space is it's not just about kind of rewards, but it's also about content creators. Like, how can they interact with the whole crypto space, right? And I think this is where it's not just about financial rewards, but it's an expression of the content that they can create. And then how people can interact with it and building these kind of online communities around it. So that's super, super interesting.
Kabir.
And I'll just leave it with this thought, while I don't want to forecast, because only two types of forecasters, those who don't know and those who don't know, they don't know. But I would just say, just think about the value creation potential. Very hard to kind of time it in the short run, but if you take, a more medium to long-term approach, just a few numbers to think about, right? It's been incredible as we saw the market cap of crypto grown from 1 trillion to 2.5, that's 3 trillion, went back to 2.5 trillion. But if you think about some other asset classes, gold at 12 trillion, global equities at 120 trillion, right? And so it's been incredible progress for the last 3-4 years, but you're now starting to see a lot more institutional investors that have come in, at least in this kind of wave. So that's been kind of heartening, a lot of progress and different things that we spoke about, regulators around the world kind of taking note, right? And so, but that's interesting. It's still a long way further to go. It's 2.5 trillion, but when you think about the asset classes, like I said, gold at 12 trillion, global equities at 120 trillion, it's still got, enormous kind of growth potential. So very excited to be part of this and work with great founders like Sumit and Marcus as this ecosystem gets built up.
Got it. Thank you very much. I absolutely love it. Like I always tell people that I always tell people that we are always not bullish enough, and we are all still early in our crypto journey and Web3 journey. With that, thank you all for joining us today. I had a lot of fun learning from you guys. With that, I will give the time back to the moderator, the host. Sorry. Thank you all.
Great. Thanks, everyone.